The Scientist of Tomorrow, A Journey of Self-Belief. In the historic town of Cambridge, where centuries-old cobblestone streets whispered tales of scientific legends and Gothic spires pierced the misty morning sky, lived a young scientist named Emily Parker. The ancient walls of this academic sanctuary had witnessed countless breakthroughs that had transformed human understanding, and now they stood witness to another soul seeking her destiny. From the moment Emily first gazed through a microscope at age 7, watching in wonder as an entirely new world revealed itself, she had been irrevocably drawn to the mysteries of the universe. Emily's childhood bedroom wasn't adorned with pop stars or fashion magazines. Instead, her walls were a tapestry of scientific heroes. Marie Curie, Rosalind Franklin, and Jane Goodall watched over her as she dreamed. Her bookshelf groaned under the weight of dog-eared textbooks and scientific journals, each page filled with marginalia in her neat, precise handwriting. But beneath this facade of dedication lay a heart increasingly troubled by doubt. As she progressed through her undergraduate years at Cambridge, the weight of expectation began to crush her spirit like a gravitational force. Each morning, she would catch her reflection in the mirror, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slightly hunched, and wonder if she was merely chasing an impossible dream. The prestigious halls that had once filled her with inspiration now seemed to mock her with their grandeur. The turning point came on a rain-soaked Tuesday in October. The weather matched Emily's mood as she trudged through the university's sprawling campus, her research proposal having been rejected for the third time. The rain had driven most students indoors, leaving the historic buildings looking like lonely sentinels in the gathering gloom. As she sought shelter from the downpour, Emily found herself in the Maxwell Building, home to some of the university's most advanced research facilities. Wandering the corridors in an attempt to dry off, she discovered a small, apparently forgotten research room tucked away in a corner of the building. Unlike the sterile, modern laboratories she was accustomed to, this room felt like a bridge between past and present. Victorian-era brass instruments shared space with cutting-edge equipment, and the walls were a visual timeline of scientific achievement, from Newton's original sketches to recent Nobel Prize-winning discoveries. As Emily stood there, transfixed by this unexpected sanctuary, she noticed she wasn't alone. An elderly woman was bent over a sophisticated microscope, her silver hair catching the soft light from the antique desk lamp. Without looking up, the woman spoke, her voice carrying the weight of decades of experience. "You know, dear, I've always found that rain has a way of washing away our pretenses and leaving us face to face with our truths." Emily recognized her immediately, Dr. Sarah Thompson, a pioneer in quantum biology, whose groundbreaking work had revolutionized their understanding of cellular mechanics. Her presence in this hidden room felt like destiny itself had orchestrated their meeting. I'm sorry for intruding," Emily stammered, but Dr. Sarah Thompson waved away her apology with a gentle smile. "The universe has a peculiar way of bringing the right people together at the right moment," she said, finally looking up from her microscope. Her eyes, sharp and knowing despite her age, seemed to peer directly into Emily's soul. "You're carrying a heavy burden, young one. I recognize that look. I've seen it in the mirror more times than I care to remember." Something about Dr. Sarah Thompson's presence, perhaps the warmth in her voice or the understanding in her eyes, broke down Emily's carefully constructed walls. The words tumbled out like a dam bursting, her childhood dreams, her current struggles, the crushing weight of imposter syndrome, and the fear that she was simply not good enough to make a difference in the scientific world. Dr. Sarah Thompson listened intently, occasionally nodding, her expression thoughtful. When Emily finally fell silent, the older scientist rose from her chair and walked to a dusty cabinet in the corner. She returned with a leather-bound journal, its pages yellow with age. "This was my research journal from 1975, she said, carefully opening it to reveal pages filled with handwritten notes and complex equations. "Look at these entries. See the crossed-out hypotheses, the failed experiments, the moments of doubt and frustration. Science isn't about being perfect, Emily. It's about being persistent. She turned to another page, pointing to a particular entry. This right here? This was after my sixth failed attempt at proving my theory. My colleagues had written it off as impossible, and my funding was about to be cut. But do you know what I did? Emily shook her head, captivated. I came to this very room, sat in this very chair, and reminded myself why I fell in love with science in the first place. It wasn't about the accolades or the publications. It was about the pure joy of discovery, the thrill of pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. Dr. Sarah Thompson's words ignited something in Emily's heart, a spark of recognition, a remembrance of her own pure love for science. The older scientist continued, her voice growing passionate. Emily, the scientist of tomorrow isn't defined by their success rate or their publication count. The scientist of tomorrow is someone who dares to question, who has the courage to fail, and who possesses the resilience to rise again. I see that potential in you. It's there in your eyes, in the way you speak about your work. You just need to believe in it yourself. That conversation marked the beginning of Emily's transformation. Under Dr. Sarah Thompson's mentorship, she began to approach her work with renewed vigor. The hidden research room became her sanctuary, a place where she could experiment freely without the weight of external expectations. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Emily's research took on a new direction, combining traditional methodologies with innovative approaches she might never have dared to try before. She began to see her previous failures not as dead ends, but as essential steps in her scientific journey. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, as they often do in science. Late one night, as she was reviewing her latest experimental data, Emily noticed an anomaly, a tiny discrepancy that most would have dismissed as experimental error. But something about it caught her attention. Following her intuition, she designed a new series of experiments to investigate this peculiarity. Word of her work began to spread through the university. Other researchers, initially skeptical, started showing interest in her unconventional approach. Emily found herself at the center of exciting collaborations, her confidence growing with each successful experiment. The defining moment arrived when she was invited to present her findings at the International Conference for Emerging Scientists. Standing before an audience of the world's leading researchers, Emily felt none of the paralyzing fear that had once haunted her. Instead, she felt a quiet confidence, a deep certainty in the value of her work. As she presented her discoveries, Emily caught sight of Dr. Sarah Thompson in the audience, beaming with pride. The applause that followed her presentation was thunderous, but it was the satisfied smile on her mentor's face that meant the most to her. Later that evening, at the conference reception, Emily found herself surrounded by excited colleagues, all eager to discuss potential collaborations and future research directions. A prominent scientific journal had already expressed interest in publishing her work, and a prestigious research institution had offered her a position. But amidst all the excitement, Emily excused herself and made her way to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. As she gazed at the stars twinkling above, she reflected on her journey. She realized that success wasn't measured by the applause or the accolades, but by the personal growth she had achieved. Dr. Sarah Thompson joined her on the balcony, their comfortable silence speaking volumes. Finally, the elder scientist spoke. "You've become the scientist of tomorrow, Emily, not because of your brilliant discovery, though it is brilliant, but because you've learned the most important lesson of all. Believing in yourself isn't about never having doubts. It's about not letting those doubts define you." Emily smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. She had indeed become the scientist of tomorrow, not just through her research, but through her journey of self-discovery and resilience. Her story would inspire countless others who, like her, dared to dream of making their mark on the world of science. As she stood there, under the vast expanse of the universe she had dedicated her life to understanding, Emily knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges, more doubts, more failures, but she was ready for them, because now she understood that every scientist's journey was unique, and every breakthrough, no matter how small, was a victory worth celebrating. Her journey had taught her that being a scientist wasn't just about making discoveries. It was about maintaining curiosity in the face of setbacks, finding courage in moments of doubt, and most importantly, believing in the power of one's own potential. Emily's story became a beacon of hope for young scientists everywhere, a reminder that the path to success is rarely straight, but always worth pursuing. As the stars continued to twirl above Cambridge's ancient spires, Emily's heart swelled with gratitude and purpose. She had found her place in the grand tapestry of scientific discovery, not by becoming someone else, but by fully embracing who she was. The scientist of tomorrow had arrived, and her journey was just beginning.